Step 23, attaching the front arms. Well, we're going to grab our completed axle housing from the previous step, and we're going to add these arms. And you can see that there's this C9 piece, very similar to what we did up here in the steering arm, which is going to give the arm just a little bit of movement. And we're going to pop those into each of these pieces, and then we've got to screw them in on both the front and the top side, or top and underside. And you can see they're telling you screw them in, but don't over tighten. So first off, we need to pop these in, and of course here's all the bits. We've got all the little doodads that have to go into these arms, and then of course we've got our 4 screws. So I'll set this up and let's put these on. So first off, we need to pop these into the different arms, but before we do that, I do want to show you something. If you can see that, I still need to clean that up a bit because we don't want any burbs of any kind on here. So I'm just going to skim this off, make sure that I've got everything off of it so that it's not interfering with anything. And come on, focus. There we go. So it's fine. So I'm going to do that with each one. And then once that's done, we'll start popping them in, because you don't want any of the burbs on this, because that's what's going to give it motion. And if you haven't cleaned these up properly, it's going to jam everything up. So I'm just going to do that off camera, and then we'll start popping them into the arms. Okay, so I've cleaned these up. So what we need to do is start popping them into each of these pieces. And it's just going to be a matter of grabbing your pliers and popping them in. And you can see that there's movement. So it just gives that arm a little bit of play. So we'll do the same thing on the other side. There we go. That's popped in. So that arm is done. I'm going to do the same thing with these ones. That one hasn't quite gone in, so let's... There we go. So that's in. Grab another one. That's in. And we do the same thing with these arms. Pop that in. See, it's in there. Same again. That's in. Last two. There we go. And last one. And there we go. So all of those have been popped in. So now we're going to grab our axle housing from before, and you can see that in terms of the positioning, they want this up. So you can see that this is still towards us. And on the upper one, you can see that this notch or indentation, whatever you want to call it, is actually further out. So it's at the end. So we're going to now put this in. Now you see here, it's showing you that they want you to push it out, or you may need to push it out in order for this to fit. So you can see that it's too small. It won't fit in there. So you're going to have to pull these apart a little bit to be able to slide this in. So I think what I'll do is I'll push that in and slide it through to the top. And according to this, we need the screw. It's going to go into this side So I'm going to show you on the other side, because what I did is I ended up just doing this off camera because I was a little confused on one thing and discovered that these screws are actually tapping screws that are going to have to be screwed into the first part and the back part. So front and back, if that makes sense. So I'll show you on the next one. So if we turn this around, we've got to do the same thing, where we've got to push this in between this and slide it in. If we can get that in there. There we go. So that's got to move up to where it needs to be. More or less, we can get that there. And then we have the screw to go in. Well, the screw isn't just going to go into this hole and then slide through and screw into the backside. You actually have to screw this in even at the start of this side. So if we grab this, I'm going to make sure, make sure that that is in place. Yes. I'm going to have to screw this in and start it even here, because it's got to tap into there. So it's going through that middle piece, no problem, but it's actually tapping into the whole section right from the start and then all the way through. So I just got to make sure that that is in line. But we're going to have to just keep screwing this in until it gets to the other side and make sure that it is going through. It looks correct. Yep, it's going through. Now these are ones that they tell you do not over tighten as well. Oh, it's not going through. Hold up. See, this is the thing you have to make sure of, that it actually is going into the hole. For some reason it must have shifted. So what I discovered was I needed to push this down just a little further so that the screw would actually go through. So now when we screw this in, so in the end I did it without being on camera, only because the camera's right here and I can't see exactly where the screw needed to go. And what essentially had happened is the screw was going in slightly, ever so slightly on an angle, and I needed to push this down in order for the screw to actually be going into that hole. So I've done it. Now make sure that you don't over tighten those screws, because otherwise this is just pulling and you don't want that. So those two are on, no problem, and it's, you know, they're nice and smooth, they're free. So now what we need to do is work on the back side. So we have to turn this over now to be able to put these two on. And you can see that in terms of the shaping of this, the design is calling for the flatter part to be what's attached to the axle. So it's going to look like this, essentially. So that's the part that's got to fit onto the top. So if we take this and we put this in, just like we did with the other part, we're going to need to push this over to be able to fit that in. And then the screw has to go in this way, but you're going to have to screw this in. That doesn't just fit into the hole. It's got to be screwed in. Because it is still a tapping screw. So I just want to make sure that it is going in level, which it is. And again, just keep checking to make sure that it actually is going through. And we'll continue to screw this in. And I'm still going to periodically check just to make sure that it looks okay. Looks fine. Because if you get the angle wrong, it's not going to go into here properly. It looks like it's okay. And it's going in. Yeah, and you can see it back there. It's come out on the other side. So I'm going to screw this in a little further. But that's it. I don't want to over tighten. As soon as there's resistance, you just stop. So that's essentially how that's going to look. So we need to do the very same thing on the other side. So again, this one is going to sit like this. So we need to pop this open a bit, slide that in place. And then we've got our screw, which we'll put it onto the screwdriver first. Get that started. Make sure that that is sitting over the hole. Yeah. And you can screw that in. Which it's level. That is looking correct. Making sure that it actually is going through on the other side in the right spot. I think so. You can check again. Looks correct. And you can see it starting to come in on the other side. And there we go. So I'm just going to do a quick little tighten just to make sure that's correct. Yes. So there we go. It should look like this in the end. You've got the two bars coming off the top, and then you have the two that are angled so that technically when you flip it over, it looks like they're curved down. But essentially that is it. So that is attaching the front arms. We've got it all complete. So we can now move on to step 24, which is attaching propeller shaft B.